So, week 8 of the NFL season is upon us, and in week 8, Texans travel to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. So, the Seahawks. You already know, man. Their home crowd is, without a doubt, the best in the NFL. A lot of people throw around Arrowhead Stadium, but come on, man. It's not close. The numbers speak for themselves. Anyways, with that being said, man, Pete Carroll, one of the best head coaches in the NFL, probably the second best head coach the Texans will face this season after Bill Belichick, depending on how you view Andy Reid. Anyways, let's take a look at this Seahawks offense. So I feel like we're at the point in the season where every team has played 6 or 7 games, and I feel like that's a decent amount of games to where you could actually judge a team by their stats and make an assumption on them. That being said, the Seahawks. Their offense scores on average 22.3 points per game, which is 14th in the NFL, which is kind of like middle of the pack at this point. They average 352 yards per game, which is 13th in the NFL. Passing yards per game is 243, which is 11th. And rushing yards per game, 108, which is 18th. So they kind of lack in the running game, and that's kind of shown against these opponents. Their quarterback, of course, Matt, you guys already know Russell Wilson. I mean, the guy can make all the throws, even though he's 5'11", probably not, he's probably 6'1" or something. He's short though, that's my point. He's short, but he can make all the throws. But that's not what makes Russell Wilson dangerous. What makes him dangerous is his ability to escape the pocket and give his receivers time to get open. Not only that, he can actually run. Sometimes when there's nothing there, he just takes off and gets the first down himself, which is really dangerous. But their offensive line is the worst in the NFL, probably. If you guys think our offensive line is bad, Seattle's is even worse, and that's where Russell Wilson's mobility comes in handy. He's able to mask their bad offensive line, similar to what Deshaun Watson does for us. Their receivers, man. Of course, Baldwin, Richardson, what's his name, Jimmy Graham, and Lockett. So I feel like they got a lot of deep threats. All three of those guys can really burn you deep, and that's quite worrisome. But we'll get into that another day. The receivers, they're good. Jimmy Graham, although he hasn't done much since he got to Seattle, it doesn't change the fact that he's still an extra weapon for Russell Wilson. It doesn't change the fact that he's still dangerous. Then they also have the backup tight end, Luke Wilson, who is also pretty dangerous. So Russell Wilson has all these weapons, man. Their one flaw on offense I do see is the running back situation. The running back situation over there in Seattle has been a mess ever since Marshawn Lynch left 2 years ago. They thought Thomas Rawls was going to take over, but he's just been hurt. And then this season they found Chris Carson, but then Chris Carson got hurt. So right now they're just pretty much running out with Thomas Rawls, hoping he doesn't get hurt, and an extra offensive lineman with Eddie Lacy, pretty much. So that's pretty much their offense. Their offense isn't really all that great. They really struggle to get going. They don't really start going to the second half of games. Now, their defense. When you think about the Seahawks, you always think of their defense. The Seahawks aren't an offensive team. They're a defensive team, and this year is no different. Their defense allows 15.7 points points per game, which is first in the NFL. So right now they have the best scoring defense, and that's pretty much all that matters in the NFL. All these other stats can pretty much go out the window. If you allow less points, you have the best defense. With that being said, though, regardless, their defense is still good, like the other parts of it. They allow 304 yards per game, which is 8th in the NFL, 190 passing yards per game, which is also 8th in the NFL, and 113 rushing yards per game, which is actually 17th in the NFL. So their defense does have a weakness, and it's the rushing defense. They somewhat struggle to stop the run, and their defensive lineman, Cliff Averill, was lost for the season, or not really. He was just put on IR. I'm not sure if he can come back. I haven't really looked into his injury, but he won't be available for the game against the Texans. But regardless, they still got Frank Clark, Malik McDowell, Bennett, Sheldon Richardson, so they're good at defensive linemen. They have good defensive linemen across the board, but the one thing about their defensive line is they don't have a J.J. Watt, they don't have a Justin Houston, a Khalil Mack, and Aaron Donald. You know, those type of players that can just single-handedly wreck your game plan. But now when we get to the linebackers, man, Bobby Wagner, arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. The only one that really probably gives him any competition is Luke Kuechly at this point. So they do have a good front seven. But the Seahawks is known for the Legion of Boom. Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Cam Chancellor. Arguably the best secondary in the NFL. You can argue, Seahawks, Jaguars, or Broncos. You can make an argument for either three. So, arguably the Seahawks have the best secondary in the NFL. And the fact that Deshaun Watson has to go up against those three, man, that's terrifying. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I really have to say about the Seahawks. So, Seahawks fans, if you're watching, please comment down below if I missed anything. I think I've only watched 2 Seahawks games all season, so I could be wrong on some things. Anyways, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.